Alright, Karina baby, today is the 9th. So, let's read from A Year Full of Stories. The Lost Blanket. One hot sunny day, the Perkins family was getting ready to go to the beach. Ma packed a big picnic basket with lots of food, tuna, fish, sandwiches, cookies, cupcakes, and plenty of milk. Papa packed a beach bag with towels, flippers, and sun hats. Don't forget the fishing nets, said Ma. We might catch some shrimp. Kitty Kitten was busy packing too. She put her blankets and spade, Cuddly Rabbit, and Beach Ball in a basket. Her baby brother George was helping by taking things out. Go and find your blanket, said Katie, putting everything back. And a little later, Pa Perkins put the picnic basket and the beach bag and the fishing nets in Katie's basket in the car. Are we ready? He said. I think so, said Mama. Come along, George. I can't find my blanket, said George. Oh no, sighed Katie. So Mama, Papa, and Katie went to look for Georgie's blanket. It was blue and a little bit grubby, but it was George's favorite thing. He never went anywhere without it. The Perkins spent a long time hunting all over the house, upstairs, downstairs, in drawers, under chairs, but George's blanket was nowhere to be seen. I want my blanket, said George. At last, Katie said, I think I know where it might be. She had remembered seeing it while she was packing her things. They all went out to the car again and looked in Katie's basket, and there was Georgie's blanket, right at the bottom. My blankie, said Georgie. He must have put it there without me seeing it, said Katie. But you found it, said Mama. Well done. And now, said Papa, let's go to the beach and catch some shrimp for supper. Oh, I bet you they had so much fun as a family at the beach, right? Tomorrow is the 10th. Tomorrow you will be 5 years and 4 months old. Can you believe it? Mom, I can't believe it. I really should leave this book open because I'm just going to look at it when I upload the video later. I'm behind on a video, but I'm not behind on reading your books. So, it's going to be okay. Every once in a while, Mama will fall behind on putting a video up because the internet is kind of slow. And so I need to wait my turn to be able to upload things. And my turn's at night. And sometimes at night, Mama gets really tired. So I'll do a video for you. But then sometimes I don't stay up until after 12 to be able to upload it for you. And I'm sorry about that, but the video is done. So I think that's the important part, is that you have the storybooks read and I will get them uploaded. The 7 League Boots. There was once a woodcutter and his wife who had 7 children, all boys. The oldest was only 10 and the youngest was only 7. So she had 7 children. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Okay. I'm not sure how. The oldest was only 10 and the youngest was only 7. She must have had a lot of twins, huh? Everyone was very surprised that they had so many children in such a short amount of time. But it was because the wife had always bore twins. See? Twins. Look at that. Mama's a twin. My twin is 10 minutes older than me. Has always bore twins, except for the firstborn. The couple was very poor and their 7 children were a great burden to them because none of them could yet earn his living. The youngest was extremely delicate and rarely said a word, which made them very unhappy. Oh. They thought he was not so smart. But in fact, he was really very clever. He was very small, and when he came into the world, he was no bigger than a thumb, which was the reason why they called him Thumbkin. It seemed to the family that everything this poor child did or said was wrong. However, he was the finest and the most sensible of his brothers, and even though he talked very little, he listened a great deal. They came a very Then came a very difficult year, when the land was hit by famine, and those poor people had to make the decision to get rid of their children. Oh no. One evening when the children were in bed, the woodcutter and his wife sat in front of the fire talking. He said to her, his heart broken with grief, "I cannot stand seeing our children starve in front of my eyes, and I have decided to lose them in the woods tomorrow. We will set them to gathering wood, and we will slip away without them seeing." "Ah," cried his wife, "could you really be so cruel as to lose your children?" Her husband explained again how poor they were, but she could not consent to the plan. Of course not, that's her babies. You can't consent to losing babies in the woods, right? You can't do that. Oh my goodness. Let's see what happens. However, after considering what a great grief it would be to see them starve in front of her eyes, she finally agreed and went to bed in tears. Thumbkin had been listening to everything they said. He had got up quietly and slid under the staircase to be able to hear them without being seen. He went back to bed, but could not sleep for the rest of the night, for he was thinking about what he had to do. The next morning he got up very early and went to the bank of a stream, where he filled his pockets with little white stones. Then he returned home. When the family all left the house later, Thumbkin kept his secret to himself. Soon they were in a thick forest where it was impossible to see each other at a distance of 10 steps. The woodcutter started to work felling trees while the children collected twigs and made bundles out of them. When their parents saw them working hard, they gradually slipped more away, and then suddenly took off along the little footpath, which returned home by a different route. When the children realized they were all alone, they started to call for their parents, and some began to cry. Thumbkin told them not to cry, for he knew very well how to get back to the house. As they had walked along, he had marked the path by dropping a little white stone from his pockets. "Do not be afraid, my brothers," he said. "Our father and mother have left us behind, but I will take you back home. Just follow me." They followed him, and he led them back to their home, along the same path by which they went to the forest that morning. Look at Thumbkin working hard at the creek, gathering all the white stones. What a smart little boy. At first they were afraid to enter the house, and they put their ears to the door to hear what their father and mother were saying. Now, when the woodcutter and his wife had returned home, they found that the lord of the town had sent them 10 gold pieces. He had owed them the money for a long time, but they thought they would never get it back. This had given them new hope, for the poor couple were indeed starving. The woodcutter immediately sent his wife to the butcher's, since she had not eaten for a long time. She brought 3 times as much meat than was needed to make supper for 2. When they had eaten their fill, she said, "Oh dear, where are our poor children now? They would have eaten a good meal tonight. I told you we would regret losing them. What are they doing now in that forest? Oh my goodness, perhaps the wolves have eaten them already. You are so cruel to have abandoned your own children like that." The woodcutter lost his patience as she went on, for he was really just as upset as his wife. However, he never liked a person He never liked a person to say, "I told you so," quite as often as she did. His wife was in tears now and crying, "Alas, where are my children now, my poor children?" She cried out so loudly that the children at the door heard her and started to shout all together, "We are here! We are here!" She rushed to open the door and welcomed them with open arms. "I am so happy to see you, my dear children," she cried. "You must be very tired and hungry. And look at how dirty you are. Peter, come here so I can wash your face." Peter was their eldest son, whom she loved the most because he was a red-haired and took after his mother. Then they sat down at the table and ate with a healthy appetite, which pleased their father and mother. While they ate, they told their parents how frightened they had been in the forest, all talking at once most of the time. The woodcutter and his wife were delighted to have their children home again, but alas, their happiness lasted only as long as the 10 gold coin pieces did. When all that money was spent, they found themselves in the same despair situation as before. They decided that they had no choice but to abandon their children again. This time they planned to take them even further into the forest than the first time. Although the parents talked very quietly, Thumbkin again heard their plans. He thought he would have no problem doing the same thing that he had done before. But when he got up early the next morning to collect the stones, he found the door of the house locked. At first, Thumbkin didn't know what to do. However, their mother had given them each a piece of bread for breakfast, so he thought that he would be able to use this bread instead of stones. He would crumble the bread and drop the crumbs along the path. So he hid it in his pocket. Once again the family set off. Their parents took the 7 boys to the thickest and deepest part of the forest, and soon after they arrived, they made an excuse to leave them behind. Thumbkin was not so worried because he thought he would find the way back easily, thanks to the bread he had scattered behind. But when he looked, he could not find a single crumb. The birds had eaten every one. Oh, look at those owls up in the tree. This time the children were in a sorry state. The more they walked, the more they got lost, and the deeper they went into the forest. Darkness came, and a strange wind started to blow, which frightened them terribly. They thought they heard wolves howling and feared they would be attacked and eaten. They hardly dared to talk or move. Then it began to rain heavily, and they were all soaked to the skin. They slipped at every step and fell into puddles from which they scrambled up completely covered in mud. Thumbkin climbed a tree to see if he could discover something that could help them. Turning his head to look in all directions, he suddenly saw a tiny glimmer of light, like that of a little candle, but it seemed to be far away beyond the forest. He slid down the tree, but when he reached the ground, he could no longer see anything at all. Nevertheless, after walking for quite a while with his brothers in the right direction, he suddenly saw the light again, and they came to the edge of the forest. Finally, they arrived at the house with the candle lit. They knocked at the door, and a woman opened it. Thumbkin told her that they were poor children who had got lost in the forest, and he asked her if they could spend the night there for nothing, as they had no money. Seeing how sad and handsome they all were, this woman started to cry, saying, "Alas, my poor children, what have you come to? Do you not know that this is the house of an orc who eats little children?" "Oh, madam, what should we do?" gasped Thumbkin, who was trembling with fear as well as his brothers. "The wolves in the forest will eat us tonight if you do not give us shelter, and if we are to be eaten, we would rather it be by the master of this house and the wolves. Maybe he would feel sorry for us if you were willing to plead on our behalves. The orc's wife thought she might be able to hide them from her husband until the next morning. So she let them inside and took them to the fireplace to warm themselves. It was very hot, and there was a whole sheep roasting on the spit for the orc's supper. Just when they began to feel warm, they heard 3 or 4 loud knocks on the door. The orc had returned. The woman quickly hid the children under the bed and went to open the door. The first thing the orc asked was if supper was ready and if a bottle of wine had been opened, and immediately sat down at the table. Suddenly he started sniffing to the left and to the right, and said he smelled living flesh. "It might be the veal which I have just prepared for you that you can smell," said his wife. "I tell you, I smell living flesh," exclaimed the orc, and giving his wife a suspicious look. "There is something going on here, I think." Having said this, he stood up from the table and went straight to bed. Then he realized what his sensitive nose had smelled. "Ah, this is how you try to deceive me, you wretched woman," he shouted. "I don't see why I shouldn't eat you as well, you old not-so-smart woman. These rabbits will come in handy to entertain my orc friends, who are going to visit me." One by one he dragged the boys from under the bed. The poor children fell to their knees and begged him for mercy, but they were at the hands of the cruelest orc there ever was, who was already eating them in his imagination. He told his wife that the boys would make a tasty stew when cooked in a nice sauce. He picked up a huge knife and sharpened it on a long stone. Then he approached the frightened children. He had just grabbed one of them when his wife said, "Why do you want to do it at this hour? You've had a good supper. Why don't you do it tomorrow morning?" "Be quiet," explained the orc. "They will be the most succulent now." There he is. Oh, look at this orc. "But you still have so much meat here," said his wife. "Look, a calf, 2 sheep, and a half of a pig." "You are right," agreed the orc. "Give them a good meal so they do not get thin, and put them to bed." The kind woman was delighted and cooked the children a nice supper, but they were so terrified that they could not eat a mouthful. As for the orc, he was so delighted to have such a delicacy to offer his friends that he drank a dozen bottles of wine, which made him dizzy, and he had to go to bed. Now the orc had 7 young daughters. The little orcs were all very robust and had ruddy complexions because they ate fresh meat like their father. But they had little round gray eyes, hooked noses, and huge mouths with long teeth, very sharp and very widely spaced. They were not yet as cruel as their father, but were beginning to follow in his footsteps, for they already liked to bite little children. They were sent to bed early, and all 7 of them slept in a large bed, each wearing a golden crown on her head. In the same room there was another bed of the same size. The orc's wife put the 7 little boys in this bed, after which she went to bed herself beside her husband. Thumbkin was afraid that the orc might regret not having cut their throats that evening, and would wake up to do so before morning. He got up when he heard the orc snoring, and took off his brother's caps. Then he crept over to the orc's 7 daughters, took off their crowns, and put the caps on their heads. Oh no. He then returned to the bed and put the crowns on his brothers' heads. and his own. It was just as Thumbkin feared. The orc woke up at midnight and regretted not butchering the lads the evening before, so he jumped out of bed and took up his huge knife. "Let us see how our little fools are doing," he said to himself. Without lighting a candle, he groped his way upstairs in the dark to his daughter's room and approached the bed in which the little boys were sleeping. They were all fast asleep except for Thumbkin, who was very frightened when he felt the orc's hand over his head. The orc felt the golden crowns. "Dear me," he said, "this will never do. This is my daughter's bed." He then went to the other bed and felt the boys' little caps. "Ah, there they are," he said. "Our lovely lads. Let's do the job properly now." He said this. He cut the throats of his 7 daughters, thinking it was the boys. Then, happily at the job well done, he went back to bed. As soon as Thumbkin heard the orc snoring again, he woke up his brothers. He told them to get dressed immediately and follow him. The boys crept quietly out of the house and climbed over the garden wall. They ran through the night, stumbling from fear and not knowing which way to go. When the orc woke up the next morning, he said to his wife, "Go upstairs and dress those little fools who came here yesterday." His wife was very surprised at her husband's kindness, not suspecting for a minute that the way he meant her to dress them was as meat. But when she went upstairs, a terrible sight was awaiting her. She was horrified when she saw her. Oh my goodness. Seven daughters with their throats cut and fainted at once, even though she was an orgus. The orc wondered why his wife was taking such a long time doing the job he had ordered her to do. He too went upstairs and was no less aghast than his wife when he saw the dreadful sight, although he did not faint. "Ah, what have I done?" he cried. "Those 7 rascals will pay for this, and right now." First he revived his wife, then he shouted, "Quickly, give me my 7-league boots so that I can catch up with those scoundrels." Donning his magic boots that would travel 7 leagues in one stride, he searched throughout the land for the boys. After he had run a great distance in all directions, he finally came to the path where they were walking, no more than 100 steps from their father's house. To their horror, they saw the orc stepping from mountaintop to mountaintop, crossing rivers as easily as if they were small streams. Thumbkin hid his brothers in the hollow rock nearby, and then hid himself, peeping out to watch the orc. The orc had become very weary from all his travels, despite the 7-league boots, which are incredibly tiring to wear. He wanted to rest, and by chance he sat down on a rock in which the boys were hiding. After sitting there for a while, he started to snore so frightfully that the poor children were just as scared as ever. Thumbkin told his brothers to run home as fast as they could while the orc was sound asleep. They did as he said and arrived home almost immediately. There's the 7-league boots. Then Thumbkin crept up to the orc carefully, removed the 7-league boots, and stepped into them himself. The boots were very long and wide, but as they were magic, they were able to grow larger and smaller to fit the person who was wearing them. So when Thumbkin had them on, they fitted his legs and feet perfectly, as if they had been made for him. The little lad went straight back to the orc's house, where he found his wife weeping over her 7 dead daughters. "Your husband is in great danger," said Thumbkin. "He has been captured by a gang of robbers who are threatening to kill him if he doesn't hand over all his gold and money." At the very moment they were holding a knife against his throat. "He saw me and begged me to warn you of his plight. He said to tell you to give me his whole fortune without fail, otherwise they will kill him. Look, I have his 7-league boots, which proves all I say." Without hesitation for a second, the woman gave Thumbkin everything apart from his habit of eating little children. She loved the orc, who was a very good husband to her. Loaded with all the orc's treasure, Thumbkin returned to his father's house, where he was welcomed with great joy, and the family never went hungry again. And what happened to the orc and his wife? Well, Thumbkin never saw either of them again, which is probably just as well. Oh, I think that's the last story in this book, baby. Where is Thumbkin? Where is Thumbkin? Here I am. Here I am. How are you today, sir? Very well, I think you. Run away, right? This is the last book in this book. I can't believe it. Oh, it ended on a good note, though. That's really cute. Alright, baby. Mama loves you, honey. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to take you places. I can't wait to do things with you. Oh, I wish my room had better lighting, but it doesn't. I just love you, baby. How well it's still. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I can't. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears. I'm trying to get better lighting for you. Relieved, how precious was that grace thus far. The hour I first believed, through many dangers, snares, and snares, I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Grandbaby, I love you. Mama and Papa will always love you no matter what. I don't care what situation you've ever been through, right? People go through all kinds of trials and tribulations in life. It's just a part of life. You have some happy moments, you have some sad moments, you have some really hard moments in life. And the thing is, though, time is always moving forward. You can just never give up hope. Every single cell in your body is fighting to stay alive, baby. You have to fight to stay alive, too. You have worlds inside you don't even know about. It's microbiology. You have a bunch of gut flora. You may have universes inside of you. We're all made of stardust. It's just what we are, right? Baby, I love you. I love you so much. Every situation, though, is different. And it's not really the situation itself, it's how you handle the situation itself. Because you can either let things break you, or you can build from them. You have to build. Every situation in life is, every single thing is just a learning experience and a character building experience. In life, if you're patient, right, and you can wait, not get tired of waiting, you're going to be okay. It's in that Rudyard Kipling poem that Mama loves so much. I should read it to you. If you could keep your head when all about you, when others are losing theirs and blaming them on you. Right? I should get the poem now. I'll read you the poem tomorrow. It used to be on our refrigerator. There are a couple of really good quotes on our refrigerator. You know? And just be kind. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. You never know what someone else is going through. It doesn't matter who they are, what they look like, or anything else like that. Skin tone is just skin tone. That doesn't matter, you know. Everyone's the same. Everyone has a heart and a mind and a body and a soul. Karina, baby, I love you. Like Papa always used to say, Mama's his sun, Papa's my moon, and you are quite literally our rainbow baby. We love you. Selina Tove, and good night to you. Lila Tove, may your dreams come true. We sing Lila Tove, may Israel protect you throughout the night until we reach the morning light. I love you, baby. Good night, honey. Oh, I want to tell you, Mama has an operation coming up on the 19th. So that means on the 14th, I have to be far away from where I'm living. And I need to, I'm going to take my computer with me, I think, and just make you movies while I'm out. I like to be home when I make you movies because I like to be home to do a lot of different things, right? Some things you just like to be home for. I love you so much, my baby, and I miss you. I miss you so much. I miss you every second of every day. Tomorrow, if I was home with you, and it was a normal month, we'd be having a birthday cake because it's the 10th of the month, and we'd be having candles that you could blow out as many times as you want. Your Papa used to say I was going to ruin your birthday for you because I'd celebrate your birthday. Well, your day, just like your special day, which is the 10th, every single month. And it was always a lot of fun. Sometimes I'd get you a cake from the store, sometimes we'd make stuff together, sometimes, you know, we'd just go out someplace extra special. We always went places. You really like to go see Lolly and Yo-Yo, and you really like to go to see the parks, and you really like to see certain people sometimes, and because you really loved a couple of your friends. You named your dolls after your friends. That's how much you loved them. I'm sure you still love them, you just don't see them as much now. Oh, baby. I miss you. I never wanted to be away from you. I love you. Good night, my angel.